Hey everybody, it's just me here coming at you with another Wonderlands melee build. This is a CLAWBRINGER BlightCalleR melee build. Now, I've made this thing hit 153 million. Once again, it is a melee and ability build just like my Stabo BlightCalleR was. So it's the same concept. You use Plague Storm, you cast your Buffmaster, you walk up, you hit them, and then the lightning strikes them and it kills them. The gear and weapons I'm using is the Delusion. I always run the Delusion because I like to apply the soaked effect to the bosses when I'm bossing. For mobbing, we use the skill bogged down in the BlightCalleR tree, but for bossing, I use the Delusion. And then we also have the Livewire. This is a melee build. The Livewire applies melee chains of lightning off of it. Also, it increases your melee damage, so it's always something you want to be holding while you do melee builds. I'm also running a Spellblade. The Spellblade I'm running here is a lightning damage one, but a cryo damage one would be better. You would want it to have echo for sure, and you'd want it to be cryo ascended preferably. But I'm just running the shock one here, and it seems to be working just fine. I'm running melee damage rings, and I'm also running a cursed wit with melee damage increase. Now, the reason I'm pushing so much melee damage increase is because I'm running a paradigm. The paradigm says ability damage and spell damage are increased by 35% of your melee. So, melee damage increase, melee damage increase, melee damage increase. Bonk on the Buffmaster is melee damage increase. So, all of that is going into ability damage increases and spell damage increases. And like I stated in my BlightCalleR Stabo build, the Spellblade deals melee damage and spell damage. It does not just deal spell damage. So, Zap Bonk is a double increase to the Spellblade. Having the spell damage increase off melee is pretty much just making the Spellblade increase itself. That's pretty cool, I think. And then on the necklace, I'm running the Urge because the ability Plague Storm takes so long to cool down, so I just run this and I activate my Buffmaster sometimes to give myself action skill cooldown if I need it. For mobbing, I was running Storm Dragon's Judgment, the hammer, so like that is okay for mobbing, but for bossing, you're gonna want to run Plague Storm. And like I had stated, Zap Bonk on the Buffmaster, but you want to make sure that it is cryo. The reason you want to make sure it's cryo is because for the ability Frostbite, the skill Frostbite in the BlightCalleR skill tree, you have to be able to apply the Frost status effect somehow with this build. We have nothing that's Frost, so I put Frost on the Buffmaster. Using a cryo Buffmaster will let you apply Frost through your Livewire. So that is how I was applying Frost. Another way I was applying Frost there for a little bit was with the Mind Rune, but I quit using it because the Cursed Wit is such a huge damage buff that it's almost needed to hit the big damage numbers like I was hitting on the build. But like I said, you can run something different if you're having a hard time staying alive. Preferably this one because it would summon a Frost Rune, and that would probably be able to apply the Frost status effect. Then over here in the skill tree, I'm running the Fate Maker's melee damage and his Wyvern Companion deal bonus lightning. You always want the bonus lightning because it's a melee damage. We're doing melee damage, so might as well. I don't have any into Oath of Fire. This is actually coming off of my body armor, so do not spec any into Oath of Fire. I'm running Rebuke because it says additionally all damage dealt to allies is reflected to the attacker as lightning ability damage, since we're buffing ability damage and spell damage. And this is a very nice damage reduction of 20%. It reflects lightning ability damage, 20% of damage taken, and that is also buffed by the paradigms. Since I am buffing melee damage and then I'm buffing ability damage and spell through the paradigm, anything that does ability is good. So, for example, the Geist in the Shell. I'm also running 5 out of 5 on it, but this is a melee build, but yet still you still want to shoot your live wire while you're, mobbing. So this is poison ability damage. This is lightning ability damage. I'm also running 5 out of 5 into Dragon Aura. This is something you always want to grab in Clawbringer. I mean, this is just a really good 25% elemental damage increase. It's amazing. I'm running this kill skill because killing an enemy with melee summons a lightning orb, seeks out dealing ability damage. So more ability damage. Now over in the Blightcaller tree, I'm running 5 out of 5 into status effect chance and duration. I'm running 5 out of 5 into Geist in the Shell. I'm running 5 out of 5 into poison damage. That's mainly just because I'm running Geist in the Shell. We're running 3 out of 3 into fire rate. The reason I went with this was to just get down the tree because we are spec'd all the way into Spirit Swarm. But it also helps out because with the live wire, when you're shooting it, you're summoning the Geist in the Shell. The Geist in the Shell is then doing ability damage, which we're buffing. We're also buffing poison damage, but Geist in the Shell also activates Bog Down, so it'll sometimes do the soaked effect. That's how I apply the soaked effect while I'm mobbing. 1 out of 1 in the Bog Down. This was just to get down the tree. This is actually not ever happening. So I mean, realistically, I could have put this somewhere else, but all the other spots were not anything you would want, and so I just went ahead and went with this one because I mean, the Spirit Swarm. The Spirit Swarm does apply a status effect. And so and the Spirit Swarm activates off of whatever type of elemental damage it was. So your Spirit Swarm can be created off of your Plague Storm. And your Plague Storm can strike dark magic. So technically I've seen the dark magic Spirit Swarm. And I mean, it going around applying this status effect then makes it where I'm doing spell damage and ability damage, which is just a straight increase to the build. That's what the build is. It's a spell blade, which is spell damage and melee, and then it's Plague Storm, which is ability. So 1 out of 3 here, mainly to get down the tree. 3 out of 3 here, we're applying Frost through the Buffmaster. So that's why it has to be a Frost Zap Bonk Buffmaster. This I've noticed so far on all the builds I've been making out of Blightcaller, that when it comes to melee, this skill here, Frostbite, is insanely good. Like if you don't proc the Frost status effect, it seems like it's too weak almost. It's kind of like running a Berserker Stabo build without Icebreaker is what it would be like doing. So it would be something you wouldn't want to do. So you always want 3 out of 3 into Frostbite on these melee builds, and you always want to be applying Frost somehow. So that's why I'm doing it through the Buffmaster. I'm activating the Buffmaster. It's going into the gun. I'm shooting it out. It's applying Frost so I can then walk up in melee. And I get the increased melee damage. We're going 3 out of 3 here because of just to get down the tree. I mean, really, I don't want to go into this one because fire status effect, I'm really not ever applying fire. I chose not to pick this one because we're doing Bog Down and I'm soaking enemies. I don't want there to be fire in my status effects because it does decrease damage on soaked enemies. I don't want that. So I just kind of try to stay away from the fire skills. And gun damage, spell cooldown rate, I ain't worried about that really. So I just went with this, hoping that sometimes we would apply a poison status effect from the Spirit Swarm, possibly. But mainly this 3 out of 3 is just to get down the tree here. And then we grab Spirit Swarm. Spirit Swarm is very nice in this build. For mobbing, it'll follow you around. If you can ever create a Frost Spirit Swarm, that's what you want, because then it's applying the Frost status effect to everybody, and you're getting the Frostbite melee damage increase, which is just amazing. And then obviously we're running Plague Storm for bossing. I can say you can run Storm Dragon's Judgment, the hammer, for mobbing. It is a-okay. I used it a couple times for mobbing. It will one-shot bosses, so I mean, like I said, we're buffing ability damage, so like, or it won't one-shot bosses. I'm sorry, it'll one-shot mobs. So we're running it around while you're mobbing on like the chaos chambers or something like that. Dragon's Judgment's good. It's a good one to use. You have it all the time, you know. Um, so with my hero stats, I went ahead and went 40 out of 40 in the strength. We're trying to go for crit. So realistically, I would love my crit hit chance to be more than 34.7, but that's actually pretty solid. So that means about 1/3 of the time I'll crit with my melee swing. So that's kind of what I'm going for. That's why I went dexterity maxed out, strength maxed out. I went ahead and went the rest into intelligence. That's because I'm running the urge. The urge gives me spell cooldown, or it gives me skill cooldown off of using my spell, activating my spell. So I kind of want my spell more than I want my ability. Another reason I chose that is because your spell is the way you're applying frost to enemies. So if I'm mobbing and you come up to an enemy and you can't apply frost to them, you will notice that your damage is not as much as it could be. That's why you want to have as much uptime on your Buffmaster as possible. So I went ahead and ran it into intelligence instead of attunement. And just to show off my myth rank, we're rocking 250. I quit putting points in for now. Melee over there, it has no melee increases other than melee swing speed, and I have my melee crit chance is maxed out, but that's just to get the crit. That's just to get the crit. I don't have any buff in damage, so it's all just plain over there. But yeah, guys, that's the video. My last one had about 900 views on it, so please, if you could, subscribe to my YouTube and also come follow me over on twitch.tv/itsjustme1234567 I need 23 more followers and I can become an affiliate. So if you would, please help me out, and I'll be seeing you guys next time. Thank you.